Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to episode 1 of our Manor Lords playthrough. If you guys are new to the channel, feel free to check out some of the other videos. And I know what you're thinking, I was here for Timberborn. Well, don't worry, Timberborn's going to be back, but I really wanted to get into this Manor Lords playthrough. So we are going to start a new game here. So let's go into new game. And this is kind of where you create your character and your house. Kind of think about it like that. So, you know, you could pick any of these. They got a bunch of different portraits. I'm going to go with this guy, and we're going to go with, he kind of looks like a lord. He's Lord Nelson, and we're just going to say that, you know, he's a lord he looks like he might be on semi-hard times. We'll see. You know, he's trying to build up his people again. And then over here, you can kind of change your coat of arms. So you can go with any of these designs, and, you know, if you go with one that has quadrants, it gives you all these different fields that you can customize. And it's super interesting. Lots of little symbols. You can change all the colors. So, you know, you could come in here, you can make this green with a blue hut or whatever that is. Blue furnace, maybe. But I'm going to go with this one. It's a coat of arms that I kind of spent, you know, a couple minutes coming up with. And I actually really liked how it turned out. So I think it looks good. So then we're going to go into our game setup. And we're going to go with this middle scenario right here. Restoring the peace. And essentially, the scenario on the left, Rise to Prosperity, this one is like, there's no combat. It's just a city builder. You still have to, you know, deal with the balancing of, you know, making sure you have enough food and the happiness of your civilians and all that. But there's no combat. And then over here on the right, on the edge, this is totally the other direction. Tons of combat. You are pretty much constantly under pressure. So we're going to go right down the middle with Restoring the Peace. It's a nice balance. You'll have some conflict, especially when you're ready to expand and you have to push into the Baron's territory. He's the AI player on in the map. So I think it'll be a good mix. It'll give us an exposure to kind of everything that the game has to offer. And then we're not going to change the difficulty, and we're not going to change any of the presets. So let's go ahead and jump into the game here. Now, for those of you who haven't picked up this game, it's super interesting. And the fact that this was developed almost single-handedly for the entire development of this game, for those of you who aren't aware, and we're just going to go, we'll just pause real quick, is super interesting. And it's so awesome that, you know, that people can do this. So we got a new message. Victory condition is dominance. Build up your town, your manor, and when ready, press claims toward regions owned by your opponents. Once a claim has been pressed, be ready for battle. I will unite these lands under my rule, says Lord Nelson. And there I am, right here in the top right. Okay, so in Manor Lords, families need food and fuel and a roof above their heads. The supplies in the region panel shows how much you've got left. Awesome. So I think the next time that pops up, I'm just going to click skip tutorials, because we don't need tutorials. I am a tutorial. Says the guy who has only played, you know, a couple hours in this game and hasn't really gotten that far. We'll figure it out together. So this is Ruth. This is our first camp here. And one thing I love about this game is you can zoom in super far. If we just press play, you can zoom in super far, and then you can zoom way out into this more, there we go, skip all future tutorials, into this kind of map, you know, regional map. And this shows the 2 territories already controlled by the Baron up here. And then we've got outlaws on the map as well. Let's see, there's an outlaw camp over here that we will have to deal with. So let's zoom back in and let's keep the game paused for a minute while we take a look at what we've got for our little territory here. So we've got 2. Wow, this is actually a great start. We've got 2 rich deposits. We've got a rich animal deposit, and we've got a rich berry deposit. You can see that they're rich by that little crown. And then we've got clay, iron, and stone, which are great. Those will be used for our construction. But these 2 rich food deposits, that's actually huge for the early game. Essentially, the way that this game works is it works in seasons. So you can see down here that, you know, we're currently in March. You can see that right here. And that's in the spring. So frequent raining, seasonal deposits grow. So these 2 are considered seasonal deposits. They will essentially be depleted and then return, which I think is great. Actually, the animals might not be considered seasonal, but the berries are. So the fact that we've got 2 starting deposits here is actually going to be great. So why don't we start handling the things that we need? We need food and we need shelter. And we also need water, but like not for drinking, but I want to get water. So if you look down at the bottom here, we've got our kind of our construction, basically the things that we can do. So we've got roads, construction, army, all this stuff. And then along the top, we've got our resources. So why don't we, let's do a little building and then we'll go over the panel at the top. So I think I'm going to grab the road tool, and this road tool works in splines, which is really cool. So you can see that as I move it, you're not going to get a right angle. It's just going to kind of bend and just make a really organic shape. And then you just click on this little hammer to go ahead and build that road. And then if we go into our construction here, you can see that we've got a hunter's camp, which we're going to build nice and close. And you can actually see this little red ring around it. So if you were to build inside, you'd see that the animals will migrate. So we don't want to do that. We want to stay nice and far away. Same with the berries. If you build on top of the berries, it'll destroy them. So we're going to go ahead, we'll build a hunting camp, and then we will build a forager hut to gather the berries. We'll just tuck those right there on the edge of the wood line. And then these will start to get built. So if we click on one, we can change the priority. So maybe we'll make the forager hut the priority. Actually, let's make the hunting camp the priority, because the berries are still growing, whereas the animals they're right there ready to hunt. So we'll go ahead, we'll let them build that. So if we unpause now, and we just kind of start to speed this up a little bit, we'll go to like 2 times speed. Actually, we'll go to 1 time speed while we talk about the top here. So this is the unassigned families, not workers, families that can work, versus the assigned. This game is super interesting in the fact that it doesn't bother with how many people you assign to a job. It's all about how many families are assigned to a job, which is very fitting for medieval times. I mean, a lot of people's last names actually come from family trades that were done once upon a time, because the entire family would do the same thing. They would either all be farmers, or they'd all be, tanners, or they'd all be weavers, and they would really work together. So this game works with families. So you can see if we go over here, this is living space, obviously houses, we have none. And then this is population. So you can see it's based on families. So we've got 5 level 1 families, which consist of 8 adults, or 8 men and 2 women, I believe is what those symbols mean. 8 men and 2 women, or either 8 adults and 2 kids. I'm not sure. If somebody knows in the comments, let me know. Either way, though, we've got 5 families to work from. And you always need available families to build things. So if I were to assign all 5 families to jobs and then queue up a bunch of buildings, nothing would build because no one would be available. So it's always good to keep like just at least 1 family free to build. Then we've got our approval. It really interesting. It has a recent 30 days and then the previous 30 days. So they'll kind of the people have a memory of like how you're doing. We've got public order, which I'm not sure if this actually like factors in yet. Again, this is in super early access, so like we're still, I'm still trying to figure out like what's a finished product. I'm sure none of it really is. We got regional wealth, which is great. So that's just our money, which we can also increase through taxes. We've got livestock, so we have 1 oxen. Let's see if we can find the oxen. There he is. And the cool thing is if we click on this hitching post, you can go into livestock. So we've got Earhart is our ox, which is great. I love that. This game is it's so detailed, like down to the fine level. Then this is like your most important thing you want to look at. The number of months before supplies run out. So this is essentially calculating, based on your population, how many houses, how many people you have, how long is your food and fuel going to last. Now, fuel obviously not being things like, gasoline. And let's come over here and we'll assign 1 family to each of these. So now that's a whole family that's going to go over and work. And if you click on people, you can actually see how many people are working. So like on the hunter's hut here, we've got Earhart sharing a name with the ox, obviously, and then Veet. They are our hunters, which is great. So they're going to go start hunting, and then we can continue to kind of build out a little bit. But this is going to essentially show you how long you can survive if everyone just stopped doing what they were doing. And this number will fluctuate. Now we have no fuel consumption. What is fuel? Fuel is firewood. Or later on, you can do other things like charcoal. And then on the right here, to the right of Iman Ruth, is our resources. We've got our construction resources, timber, stone, all that. We've got our food, obviously, pretty self-explanatory. We've got our fuels. We've got 20 firewood right now. Our crops, which we have none. Our crafting materials, which are kind of like your in-between resources. So, they're typically made from something, but they're not the finished good. So think, flour or leather. Like you're not going to eat the flour, you're not going to wear the leather. You're going to eat the bread and you're going to wear the shoes. We've got commodities, which again are those finished resources. And then you've got military supplies, swords and shields and bows. So let's keep building. We're going to need construction materials, primarily wood. And now, something that's interesting is if we were to build like a logging camp right over here and it were to encroach on these resources would disappear. Now the animals would move, but I believe the berries are gone. So we don't really want to encroach over there with our logging. So what I think we'll do, I'm going to go into our roads. I think we're going to end up building our town here. If we go into construction, let's check this message. I have heard of your renown. I only seek to defend my rights and my honor against those who would wrong me. I hope you will not judge me by the rumors and slander that some may spread about me. And this is from Hildenbolt von Brennenroot. I probably butchered that. But so this is like one of the examples of something that's not quite in the game yet. So as you can see, current relations, this is a work in progress. So there really is nothing diplomatic going on as far as I am aware. I've kind of tried to play around with this a little bit, but I don't really think that it's fully functional. But okay, if we go into our construction here, you can see this overlay on the right. So one thing that we're going to need is water to fight fires. So if you click on underground water, a well is going to need to be built on top of one of these underground waters. And luckily we have one right here. So I think that this area still fits for our initial settlement. And then we've got our crops. So we've got emmer, flax, barley, and rye. And then smell and fire hazard are still work in progress. So these are kind of our crops. So you kind of want to see like, am I going to be filling in my only fertile land with crops? Right here, the rye is okay. I actually don't think rye is in the game yet, but maybe, do we have cropland down here? Yeah, it's kind of, it's okay. It's not bad. Something tells me that this isn't going to be the most successful farming area. It looks like we can get a little bit up here. But I'm okay with building our starting settlement over here. So let's go into roads. And I'm going to hold Alt, and I'm going to remove this road entirely. I just don't, I don't love where it is. And I actually want to grab this road here, and let's just kind of snake a road kind of along this wood line right here. So let's go ahead and build that. I like that a lot. And one thing I love about this game is that it's so organic. The building is just so fluid. And let's go in, let's get a logging camp. Let's get that right here. And then what I think we'll also probably want is a woodcutter's lodge to get some firewood going. So let's get both of those built. And then I think I'm actually just going to move this hitching post. So this is one thing that's great about this game is I can grab this hitching post, which is where our ox is tied up when he's not in use. Obviously, like, I don't want to have to build my whole city around this hitching post, so I'm just going to hit relocate, which allows me to move it. And I think, why don't we just put it like right here, kind of at this intersection. And this will be the highest priority. So we'll get that built first. And notice that the resources aren't lost. The log that is going to be needed to build the hitching post, you can see it needs 1 timber. It's sitting right here on the ground. So they'll just come back and get that. So you didn't lose any resources to move the building. It's just going to kind of, do its thing and move it. And, I'm going to move it over there because I like that location a little bit better. So some other things that we should probably get. if you look up here, our little warning signs, we've got exposed goods. And if we go back to our little tent area, you can see that we've got supplies just out on the ground. These supplies will go bad if they are left to the resources. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come over to our little food area, and I'm gonna build a granary. And I'm just gonna build it right here, right across from the food, so they can store the food in there. That'll be great. And then similarly, I'm gonna build a storehouse. And I'm gonna put that right down here by our wood area. And I think that that'll be good. So let's go ahead, we'll go into 2 times speed here. Actually, let's go back to normal speed. And let me show you something that's super cool about this game. You can go into a third-person view and just walk around and look at what people are doing. So, you know, this is where our storehouse is gonna go. And down there is where our little logging camp is gonna go. It's awesome. So we'll hop out of that. But it's just such a great little touch. And once the city is kind of built out and you walk around it, it's so much fun. But okay, so the goods are exposed, but we've handled that. We're building the storehouse, we're building the granary, which is going to be great. And obviously I want them to get this hitching post done first. And then if we do some reprioritizing, why don't we get the logging camp next? And then the granary, and then I'll let them build these 2 after that. But that'll be the order. So let's go into 2 times speed here. The other thing we need to handle is our housing. So let's grab a path here. And I think we'll run this path just kind of, and look at this, look at the fluidity here. It's noticing that there's a building right here, and it's just gonna bend around it, just nicely. So why don't we send a road kind of back here. So let's send a road kind of along this way. I don't know where it's going to go, but it'll be nice when it finally goes somewhere. And then if we come back over here, I would love for a road to kind of come right along here, right along this little wood line. And we'll connect that right in there. So now we're going to start building our little housing area, but the houses are going to need a marketplace. So why don't we, if we go into our housing, our residential building, you can see that they're going to need a marketplace. So why don't we see what a marketplace would look like kind of here. And you can see, so this is going to have 20 stalls. That's not very good. So I wonder if we were to do something like this, that's 50 stalls. I feel like 50 stalls is pretty good. It's quite a lot of stalls. So why don't we build this? And then I'll just clear out a little area for the stalls to be built. And then I think I'll just run a road around this just for continuity. And then maybe, let's see, if I were to grab this and drag it up and then grab this, connect it in there, and then we'll connect this road right here. And then we'll just delete this little road right there, just because I don't really know where it's going to go. We'll connect that in. And you can see that because this road has been built around some buildings, the road has changed. It's become wider as opposed to this thin little path, which is very interesting. I like that a lot. The logging camp is built, so let's get a family logging. And if you go into advanced, you can actually set the work area. So if you hold control, you can change the workable area size. And I think for now, we'll have them kind of work in this area right here, which is super interesting. It's really great for, like, we could build a logging camp right here and just set the workable area to this side of the road, and they would totally leave this wooded area alone where the berries and the animals are. So it's super interesting. But okay, so we're getting a marketplace going. You're probably thinking, well, what is the marketplace for? The marketplace sets up these stalls which sell the goods, or at least they provide the goods to the people, which is just it's such an interesting mechanic. I don't know if you would call it a mechanic, but I do. I think it's a mechanic. And why don't we branch this road in like right here? So that's kind of an interesting design. And for those of you who have played, big city builders in the past, think City Skylines, which functions on kind of a mix of a grid system where the buildings are on grids, but the roads are fluid. Or Timberborn, which is purely a grid system. This game is the complete opposite. So we're going to build some houses. And let's say that I want the houses to face the marketplace, right? So you can see this arrow that I'm dragging. And now I can just fill in this little area and it'll create 3 housing plots, which is just so cool. It's so unique how fluid this is. And you know what? I could bring it all the way back here and it would fill in the whole space with houses. And you're going to see it. Now, right now, it's not letting us build it because we don't have enough wood. Which brings us up here. You can see we're in the construction menu. So this has changed now. This has changed to just construction materials. And if we exit out of the construction menu, it goes back. But the cool thing is this button right here. So right now it's showing the surplus. So it's showing resources that are not already committed to a building project. If I click on this, it shows the total goods that we have. So this is resources, whether they've been commit to a building project or not. It's super interesting. But anyway, we're going to build some houses. So what did it say? We needed like 6 timber to be able to do that. So why don't we speed this up a little bit and we will get some timber going. Now, one thing that I want to do, I'm going to throw a family in the granary because I want them to come over and pick up all this stuff. And then, I would do the same with the storehouse, but we don't have anything on the ground. But I am going to throw someone in the woodcutter's lodge. But we definitely want to build some stuff. So we've got the timber that we need, and I want a little row of houses facing this marketplace. So we'll just select this area, and then you can decrease the density. So this could just be one house. And you're probably looking at these symbols. So this symbol here, if we kind of spin around, this symbol here shows that the house can be expanded to hold 2 families as opposed to 1, obviously, because this is a huge space. And then this little area back here shows that the house can support kind of an additional service, either garden or, goats or a tannery or, he can make bows or something. It's really interesting. So we'll go with 3 here. That'll give us 3 little backyards. And we'll just go ahead and build those. And then let's see if we can fit another house in here. So if we bring it all the way down to this corner, yeah, see, we can fit another house in here. And this one's actually going to allow it to be expanded. So why don't we fill that in? And this just becomes so interesting. It allows you to create such interesting city layouts that they're just so organic. But anyway, okay, so did all the supplies get picked up yet? No. However, the remaining supplies are not going in the granary. They are going in the storehouse. So let's swap this family out, take him from the granary, and we will put them in the storehouse. And they should come over here and pick up all these goods, which will be really good. Let's take the woodcutter and let's mark an area. And why don't we mark kind of this area up here? So let's expand this a little bit, and they can start cutting the firewood up here. And you can actually see that this forester, this logging camp, is now clearing away the trees here. Now there are ways to replant them. They're not permanently gone forever. So not to worry there. But okay, let's add in some more houses because we've got 4 being built right now, but you can see that we have 5 families. So we need more houses. So why don't we maybe build some houses kind of over here. We can fit 2 in right there. So let's get 2 more houses being built. And you can see now that we have a food stall that's selling berries and meat. And we have a firewood stall. Now these stalls are operated by the families that operate the facility where the goods are made. So right now we've got let's see if we go, let's find a good example. So we've got the forager hut for the berries. You can see this little symbol here. The family owns a market stall. If you unassign them, the market will have to be taken over by someone else. So not only are they collecting the berries, but then they're also bringing them down to their food stall and selling them, as well as the hunters are bringing the food down as well. So that's really interesting. Now you've seen that we have bread. Unfortunately, that bread is what we started with. That is not going to last. So we are going to need to fairly aggressively improve our food ability. And there are some really interesting ways to do that. So let's click on a burgage here, a burgage plot. And you can see, so if it had that little backyard, right? So this one didn't. This one does not have the little backyard. It has the opportunity to expand it to fit 2 families, but it didn't have the backyard. If you come into this one, which did have the backyard, you can click on this construct a backyard extension. We're level 1, so they can have a vegetable garden, they can have a chicken coop or a goat shed or an apple orchard, but we need to unlock that in the development tree. So why don't we give these guys a vegetable garden, and then if we come into this other plot, maybe we'll give them a chicken coop. And then if we come into this plot, you'll see that we aren't able to afford anything else because we don't have enough regional wealth. We just spent it all. But we're gonna have a vegetable garden and we're gonna have a chicken coop. And now you can see the whole backyard changes. And now this one's not built yet, but these, our people now are planting vegetables, which is great. It's gonna provide an additional food source. Which if you go into a burgage, you can see what are their demands. They want water access. Okay, so we haven't built a well yet. They want church. We haven't built a church yet. They want a fuel stall. Okay, they have that. They have that right here, selling firewood. They want a food stall. They want 2 types of food stalls, or at least 2 foods offered at the market. So currently they have 2, because if we click on the food stall, they've got berries and bread. Typically they'd have berries and meat in the early game once that bread runs out. And then they're going to want a clothing stall. So the clothing is kind of your first hurdle to get to the next level, is going to be that clothing. At least the couple times that I've played this game anyway. It's going to be that clothing. So let's go ahead. I'm going to unassign this guy from the storehouse because now all of our resources on the ground have been picked up, and I'm going to put that family in the woodcutter's lodge. And we're working on these last 2 houses, so that's going to give us a surplus of 1 house, and you can see that we have 1 family that is currently homeless. And man, resources stolen by the nearby bandits, the pelts. And let's go back into our strategic map view and let's see. Yeah, you can see we've got the bandits right over here. Now, we don't yet have a military because we have no military supplies. We've got no weapons, no armor, nothing of any sort that's really going to help us. But okay, so we just provided all the housing. That's going to increase our level. We are now a small village, and that gives us a development point. Let's read this message first. Armament delivery. A strong militia is paramount to the survival of any settlement. Luckily, a shipment of weapons has just arrived, and you will now be able to create, your first militia banners to serve you and protect your people. However, we will need more weapons to equip all the peoples as the settlement grows, either by making them or importing them from other lands. Let's form the militia. So now if we go into our military tab and we take a look at what we have in stock. So we've got large shields and spears, 20 of each. Now, let's say we tried to create a bow militia, right? An archer militia. It's going to show 0 of 36 possible people in this militia unit. And the reason being is that, first of all, we only have 10 people who are eligible to serve. Most likely, the 10 adult men. And we have no bows. So they're not going to be able to fill out a militia unit. Same thing, if we try a pole arm unit, right? We have no pole arms. We've got the people, but no pole arms. If we try a speared militia, you can see now that the spears and shields are not the limiting factor. Now it's the people. So I'm just going to leave that there. And as we get more people, they will fill in until the spears and shields become the limiting factor. And now we're stuck at 20 until we can get more military supplies. And now you can see that our military supplies have now dropped from 20 of each to 10 of each because we have 10 people who are using those resources. And interestingly enough, if you go into these burgages, right? So this burgage now has 2 spears and 2 shields in the burgage. And that's because the you know, there are probably 2 men in this burgage, you know, 2 adults who are able to fight. And so they've got their spears and their shields. So when we muster them, they will, you know, put down whatever job they're doing and they will run and become soldiers. Okay, so let's take a look. So our food is good for 34 months, which is pretty excessive. It's probably the berries, which I'm not upset about. The fuel is good for 3 months. Now, the fuel should be okay. We've got plenty of trees around here, so I think we should be okay with the fuel. So let's kind of start thinking about some of the other things that we're going to need. We're going to need a church. Again, always go off your burgage. What does your burgage need? So let's do water and church. So let's do water first. That one's the easy one. And that one's also limited by where we can put it. So let's grab a well here in the residential tab. And we could put it right here, which I kind of like. It's fairly central to the area. And you can just see that it fits on, it just fits right there. So let's do a well right there. And now also in the residential tab, we'll grab the wooden church. And now you can see we don't have enough goods because we don't have any planks. You can see up at the top here, we've got the timber and we've got the stone. No planks though. So if we go back to our gathering, the saw pit is actually right here, which is going to turn lumber into planks. So why don't we get a saw pit right here? I think we'll make the well the highest priority, and then they can come over and work on this saw pit. I'll just make it a high priority for now, which will be good. And it means that they're actually going to stop construction on this burgage plot. So let's go into maybe 2 times speed as we go. But now, when you place your market, let's talk about the marketplace for a minute. So proximity to buildings is important. You know, if I place my market here and then I go all the way over here and I build some houses over here, they're not going to get the effect, at least not as rapidly and not as strongly as these will, being directly adjacent to it. So it's always good to keep in mind where you're building things. So because I built my market here, I'm envisioning that we're kind of sprawl here, and then maybe we'll end up sprawling kind of over here as well, but they'll probably need another market. At least we'll have to see if they will. I haven't really gotten to the point in my playthroughs off screen about whether you really need multiples of unique buildings like the church or the marketplace. So I think it'll be a good learning experience for us all. So now you can see our wild animals and our berries, they're doing great. They are basically maxed out, both of them. And so like, I just love this detail. Like if we come in here and we go into our Lord view, we can just walk over here and we can see, you know, this guy is just working on some animal that he just went and hunted. You know, there's a little forager hut right here, which is super interesting. And our granary is here. And there's our ox, Earhart, right? Wasn't that his name? I think that was his name. Not sure. Let's see. Yeah, Earhart the ox. Leave a comment for Earhart the ox. Let him know that you appreciate all the hard work he's doing. But okay, so let's go into a little double speed here. And I think, well, why don't we run just a nice path right behind here. That'll be nice. And then why don't we just kind of curve it right into this road for no other reason than I think it looks nice. And just to create a little variety in our town. And then why don't we go into our residential and we can get a couple more burgage plots in here. Maybe like 2 more. Let's get those queued up so we can build a couple more. Population growth, as far as I can understand it in this game, is a mix of your approval and your available housing. So if you go into your population right here, there's no population growth because we have low approval. It's below 50%, which is your minimum threshold for your population to grow by people moving in. Because this game is on such a short time frame that it's not really about births and, you know, children growing up. It's about people moving here. And you can see. So now there's no population growth. All burgages are occupied because they haven't finished this one, and we've got 5 burgages here, and we have 5 families. So that's why I'm building just a little bit of excess. It's important to not overdo it, because once your approval rating gets high, you can fill burgages really fast. You know, really quickly. They can be filled. But okay, so they're working on this saw pit. I think I'll make this burgage that they already started a slightly higher priority so that they finish that one up. And you can see that we got our well built, which is great. So now if we ever have any fires, they will come over here and they will handle it with that well in mind. So now, some of these other resources, so clay, iron, and stone, these are not rich resources. Unlike the berries and the wild animals, which are rich deposits. These are fairly limited, actually. They don't last that long. They last a decent amount of time, but not that long. So if we zoom out, you'll see that directly adjacent to us right here, in Nuslo, we have a rich clay deposit and a rich iron deposit. The resources, as far as I can tell, are randomly generated, as you know, for location, and as well as what is rich and what is not. Put it this way, I've certainly played this game before, and I've played in this area, this starting area, and I've not had these as rich resources. So I'm actually excited that they are rich, because I think it'll give us a little bit more of a, you know, a buffer. But we need to claim these regions, and we are nowhere near strong enough to claim them. Because oftentimes when you claim a region, you have to fight for it. And if we go back into our army, I've only got 10 spear militia. That is unacceptable. You know, I feel like you need at least like 20 to be able to, you know, start to field a significant force. But okay, a little while ago, we leveled up to a small village, and that gave us 1 development point. You can see it right here. So if we click on this, it brings up the development tree, the policies, which is really, it's super early access. They've got a couple things. So like hunting grounds, wild animals on rich deposits breed twice as fast at the cost of 50% reduced yields from crops. Now this would be an awesome combination if you had abysmal crop yield to begin with. You know what I mean? Like if you had a region where you were just dead set on, you know, I'm not going to be farming here, this would be great. This would be super interesting. Strict fasting. They skip their every 5th meal. Reduces food consumption, decreases approval. Yeah. You know, that seems fairly accurate. And then the rest of these are locked due to early access. And then we've got the production tab that literally has nothing here. So as you can see, it is very early access. I mean, a lot of these development pieces are locked, but there are enough here that the game still has tons of flavor. So for instance, if you knew that you were going to be struggling on food, you could go for trapping, or you could go for forest management, you know, doubling the capacity of berries or producing a passive income of meat from trapping. Considering we have those 2 rich deposits, I think we're going to go in a different direction. And we could either go, I like the sheep breeding. Sheep breeding is great. It allows sheep on your land to multiply as long as you have 2 of them. So that's a really good early game one. Charcoal is pretty good. It allows you to convert firewood to charcoal, essentially making your firewood a 2-to-1 resource, so, or a 1-to-2 resource, 1 firewood for 2 charcoal. And then the trade logistics is really good as well. Trade logistics is really advantageous for if you're going to be trading a lot, which we probably will be. But I think we'll do that a little bit later on. I would love to do, I'm thinking sheep breeding. I think sheep breeding would be good. So let's go with sheep breeding, and then let's exit out of here. Now, you're probably thinking, we don't have any sheep. You would be correct. I do not have any sheep. So we're going to need to trade for some sheep. So why don't we come over here? I kind of like this area. And why don't we just put a road right up here? And if we go into our construction and we go over to trade, we can build a trading post, which allows us to establish trade routes and trade goods, as well as a livestock trading post. So we're gonna build both. I think they will both be beneficial to us. And then why don't we just connect this road right up here, just to make it a nice loop. And then maybe we'll just have this go off into the forest in a little nub right there. And that'll be good. So this is going to give us a couple trading posts, which is going to be super beneficial because that's how we're going to get our first sheep, which is going to be great. Now, if we go into our approval rating, you're probably thinking, hang on, we're doing pretty good. We have, you know, everyone has a house. They've got food. You know, there's a water supply. They've got everything they need. Well, they remember. They have a memory. There's homelessness. So they're getting a -5 from that homelessness from the previous 30 days. They remember being homeless and they're not happy that we made them homeless. So you can see that based on that 50% as your kind of your center line, we're getting a -5 for the previous homeless, and then we're getting a +4 and a +1 from the food variety. So we're at a net 50. So as we go above 50, you can see now low population growth, neutral approval. So it's going to take a while, even though we have available plots, it's going to take a while to fill them in, which is okay. Now let's think about our sheep here. So I think what we're going to end up doing is we're going to bring a road kind of off in this direction. Maybe something like that. And we're going to end up putting our sheep over here, and maybe we'll just bring this road kind of a little bit further up. So let's go into, let's see, where are the sheep? Farming, I believe. Yes, sheep farm. So why don't we grab a sheep farm, and why don't we put it maybe right here. I like that. So we'll get a sheep farm there, and then we can put some pasture in right here, which will be very nice. But remember, we're going to have to trade for those sheep, which means we're going to have to get these built, which is going to be a whole other thing. And now let's see, how are they doing? Let's adjust this area here. I think we'll push it a little bit further back so they can cut logs in that area. And inevitably, we're going to have to move this logging camp around kind of as we go, at least until we have the population where we could throw a few people in a forester to regrow the trees. But we just don't have the available population for that at this stage. But they're building the livestock trading post, and then they'll probably work on the trading post. So let's make this the highest priority. We'll do the trading post is very high, and then they can work on the sheep over here. But okay, so if we go into the livestock trading post, we're going to want to import some sheep. So let's set this to import, and I want to have, let's buy 2 sheep. Now we're not going to be able to afford this. We don't have any regional wealth at the moment. Luckily, there are ways to get regional wealth, namely a little bit of combat with some bandits. So we're going to have to work that out in episode 2. I hope you guys stick around for this playthrough. I'm really enjoying it. I hope you guys are. If you are, consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps out, especially with the visibility of the videos, as well as it's just super motivating to see people who enjoy the channel enough to subscribe and, you know, be pestered by me every once in a while when you see my videos on the, you know, on your homepage. And consider leaving a like and a comment below. I really appreciate it. If just simply liking the video, the engagement on it is awesome. And again, super motivating. I appreciate you all. Until the next episode, I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you then. Thanks. Bye.